The new administration here, geared in by, Mr. Donald Trump. They done created what they call it, the OZ, the Opportunity Zone. I just purchased the first 275 acres of a 400-acre plot in the new Opportunity Zone. And you heard the president talking about the opportunities and the resources that became available as a small businessman in the new Opportunity Zone thing. And we done had a 100% growth pattern over the last 4 years. But projectedly now, we don't have a 200% growth pattern over the next 18 months because of the new Opportunity Zone thing. So this is the new era for SDAC. This is the new vision. And say, I got y'all here. I can say hello to this audience, I can say hello to the nation. And I know somebody in the world elsewhere looking at me today. So I'm say hello to the world. And while I got y'all here, I can't speak about the State of the Union for the nation. But I can say the State of the Union for SDAC is strong. Strong. And in my closing, I'm going to say, God bless the United States President, Mr. Donald Trump.
What a great success story. I mean, driving increased private investment to distressed communities is crucial for building economic opportunities and encouraging new business formation. So TW, what has President Trump done to ensure that future success is never defined by income or zip code?
Well, first of all, Katrina, the president knows firsthand that you cannot tax your way to prosperity. I mean, when you think about what has made this country great, what has made this one of the best countries to invest in, it is really an environment where people know that they can invest safely and expect a decent return. And so the idea that the Democrats have been proffering for generations that just give me a little bit more of your freedom, give me a little bit more of your liberty, give me a little bit more of your money, and I'll make it better for you. Well, that 40 acres and a mule that they've been promising, I'm just determined it's not going to show up. And what we need is a president, what we've needed for a long time is a president who is going to ensure that there is an environment where investment and where capital will flow. And that's what we're seeing happen. And that clip was a great example. Real people are benefiting from the policies of this president. We're seeing it time and time again. That's just one of many stories. I mean, you think about where we would be right now during this pandemic had we the economy that we had back in 2008 before president was elected. If we were in those type of shackles, this economy was pent up with that much demand, and we hadn't unleashed the full power of American ingenuity. I don't know where our country would be right now, but thank God that we had an environment that President Trump had created a culture of investment where people want to invest. And now what we're seeing is they're investing in historic areas that have been ignored for generations. And I think that's the most exciting part about this presidency.
Yeah, and then also when you look at the investment that the president's administration has made, making capital available to minority-owned businesses too, to even expand. So I think this is a huge deal for Black communities. And, I mentioned earlier, TW, about leveling the playing field. And one of the main things that I believe, and you can give me your opinion, that I believe levels a playing field is a quality education. Sure. And school choice is definitely a priority for President Trump, and he knows that providing strong K-12 education has been shown to increase future success. So these actions are going to have, profound impacts on Black communities for generations, because a quality education is definitely the equalizer when it comes to success and getting out of bad circumstances, regardless of your race. So, in that vein of education, President Trump has also done unprecedented things for historically Black colleges and universities. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Well, first, even President Barack Obama said, Katrina, when he was running, I'm old enough to remember when he said that the great civil rights struggle of the 21st century is access to a quality education. But for whatever reason, the Democrats that control the House and around the country, they have fought time and time again against choice initiatives for education. And what we know is parents are the ones that are best equipped to make decisions about their child's education. But we've seen them fight it time and time again. But even beyond the K through 12 effort, at the college level, what we've seen is historically is that African American rates for graduation are below those of their peers. But one area where African American rates tend to increase is at our HBCUs, our historically black colleges and universities. And both my parents are graduates of Langston University and one HBCU here in Oklahoma. And so I've got that thread running through my veins, and I'm excited about the opportunity to provide in my family, but I'm also excited about what HBCUs have done for this nation as a whole. And President Trump gets that. And that's why we've seen this president make more investment, increase by over 13% the investment for HBCUs. And not only did he do it during one funding period, but he made it a permanent funding initiative as well. And so we're going to see our HBCUs really thrive. And I've talked to my president here at Langston University in Oklahoma, and they're seeing the benefits of what that increased investment can do. Because again, the best way to prosperity, if we're going to change and break the cycle of generational poverty, and that's really what we're talking about. You've got to have a quality job. You've got to have a quality work environment. You've got to have a quality environment that encourages investment. But on a personal level, you got to have an education that responds to the needs of the private sector. And our HBCUs do a great job of that. But for far too long, they've been hamstrung by funding issues. And the Trump administration has met that head on. And I'm very proud of the work that they've done in the areas of HBCUs.
Yeah, what's so interesting about that policy specifically is that the president didn't have this set out to do. I mean, this is something that he learned while in office, and he tells the story frequently, and the media just won't cover it. And what was happening is once he was elected, every year, the chancellors and presidents of these historically black colleges and universities were coming to get funding from the president. So by year 2, he noticed they're back again. And then by year 3, they came back, and he asked them a simple question. It's like, why do you keep coming back? And their answer was, well, they've always made us do this. I mean, how heartbreaking is that? How do you plan anything education-wise? How do you plan your programs? How do you plan your staff? How do you plan for your teachers if you have to wait every single year to get funding? And that's what President Trump says. He goes, what? This doesn't make any sense. And so President Trump gave them permanent funding and told them to go back, take care of their schools, take care of their kids. And that is how that policy came to fruition, because President Trump noticed that that was a hazard for black colleges and universities because they couldn't properly plan. And now they have permanent funding, and they don't have to go back and beg for funding anymore. And I think that is a story that is worth being told. And the other thing is, when you hear a story like that, TW, it makes you wonder why President Obama didn't do that, why he continued to force these schools, these presidents, to come in hat in hand every year to ask for funding. He could have easily have done the exact same thing. And when you have somebody like Joe Biden, who's been in office for 4 decades, this has never been something that he's championed. I mean, he calls himself a friend of the black community, and he's never said, hey guys, let's make sure these black colleges have funding. No one even said anything about it. And I think that's really disturbing. And so this election year, I think, is going to be really important. Now, speaking of Joe, he has had decades-long opportunity to prove himself to Black America. But unfortunately, instead, he has an actual traceable pattern of racist and bigotry behavior. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Why don't you share a little bit about what Biden has on his record, TW?
Well, Beijing Biden, it's been amazing to me to watch him try to invent himself as this messiah of the African-American community, that we need him to come in and save us from ourselves and to save us from the brink of destruction. But the reality is, Beijing Biden hadn't showed up for the African-American community in the 40 years that he's been in public office. And frankly, I don't expect him to do it now. I mean, whether it's him delivering the eulogy for known racists like Robert Byrd, or we're looking at the comments that he made. Again, it's one thing to have a history and to have an evolution. I get that. We make allowances for that. The country's come a long way, and many people's attitudes have changed. But it was just a month ago that Beijing Biden was also looking folks in the camera on an African-American broadcast network, or maybe it was online, I think it was an online network, where he looked somebody in the eye and he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Well, I'm sorry, Joe, I'm not voting for you, and I am black. And I'm proud to be black, and I'm also proud to be voting for Donald Trump, because I know that we need a president that's not focused on just pandering and promises that will never be delivered, but a president who has a real record of delivering for the African-American community. And that's what President Trump has done. So I'll put his record up against Joe Biden's. I'll put President Trump's 4-year record for African-Americans against Joe Biden's for 40 years any day of the week.
Yeah, we're going to do just that throughout the remainder of this campaign. And so what would you tell Black voters who are still considering to vote for Joe Biden?
Well, it's always hard to leave what you've known and what you've always been comfortable with. So many African Americans have voted Democrat for the last 40 years because they've not felt like they've had a real alternative. They've not had a real champion for the issues that they care about, and so we're suspect. And as a people, we tend to be a little suspect of everybody, and I think that's okay. With the history that we've had, I think it's understandable. But now we have a candidate that has a real record of delivering on issues that are important to us. Promises made, promises kept. And so what I would say to African Americans, Donald Trump posed the question 4 years ago, what do you have to lose? I mean, I would pose the question, what have you gained? And when you look at the statistics, when you look at the reality of where we are as a country, where we are as an African American community, it's better than it's ever been from a statistical standpoint. And I think it's only going to get better under this president. So my advice to any African American who's still considering who to vote for, what party to be a member of, if a two-party system has been good for America, I believe a two-party system is good for African Americans. And we need to do all that we can to tell that story. And that's why people like you, people like the others that are involved in Team Trump, are telling the message of President Trump's record.
Yeah, and it's an exciting record to get out there and tell. So we're excited to get back out on the road and tell it. So thank you, TW. Now, before I get your final thoughts, I want to take a moment to give our audience several ways to get involved, because the election is only 5 months away, and there's still so much you can do from home to make sure that we secure 4 more years of President Trump. First, you can download the new Trump 2020 campaign app and sign up at armyfortrump.com to get more involved. And to stay in touch with the campaign, text Trump to 88022. TW, your final thoughts for the evening?
Well, I would just say, Katrina, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always a privilege to be with you and to talk to those that are considering voting for President Trump. And I would just say the proof is in the pudding. I mean, you look at President Trump's record on African-American issues, even during this pandemic. The latest numbers reveal that 2.5 million jobs have returned to this economy, even during a pandemic. And I think that just speaks to the leadership that we have in President Trump. And it also speaks to the viability of the economy that he's created up to this point. And so for African Americans, the real question is, we have faced as a people generational poverty. And the question for us is, how do we move beyond that? How do we move beyond that? And it really starts with private investment, not a government handout, but it starts with leadership and people that are willing to make private investment into our communities. Opportunity zones is just one way that that's being done, but you look down the board at criminal justice reform, you look down the board at unemployment rates, there's a real record here to run on. So don't focus on personalities, focus on policy. And if you do, your vote is going to be for Donald Trump, I'm sure.
TW Shannon, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Katrina. I'm always happy to be here.
And thank you to everyone at home for tuning in. Tune in 7 nights a week for more Team Trump Online. And if you like this program, please like and share the broadcast. Check out our online schedule for the next episode of Promises Made, Promises Kept. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And we will make America great again. And the best is yet to come.
We choose truth over facts.
A composite that our sketch artists put together after interviewing Biden event attendees is unveiled.